Welcome everybody to a new live stream of Flower Circus Talks. Today we're going to talk with Adrian Parsons. Adrian has traveled and worked all over the world before he became a director of WAFEX in 1994. After he sold his shares in 2015, he started to develop Helix Australia. That's a breeder of waxflower. And recently he also started an online platform called easyblooms.com.au. We will talk about the Australian flower industry, the Mother's Day. Of course, we're going to talk about waxflower and the story behind it. So let's invite Adrian into the live stream. Adrian, welcome.
Good morning, John. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for joining Flower Circus Talks. Again, somebody from Australia. It's a big flower market over there. We've been talking with Harold a couple of weeks ago, just when it all started. It settled down a bit, or it's the virus is still there, of course, but we're already 1 month further. Can you tell us a bit, or talk us a bit through what happened the last couple of weeks in Australia?
Yeah, so our government has been very strong and shown good leadership, and that has been effective in trying to flatten the curve. So the number of people with the virus, the number of deaths here, it's considerably lower than what you're seeing in America and Europe. So the last month we've been in lockdown. We're allowed to go out for exercise, allowed to go out to the shops, and the regulations are just starting to ease now. So the federal government wants to get the economy going, but a couple of the state governments are going just a little bit slowly. So things are starting to improve.
Okay. So per state, it's different actually.
It's different. We have no international travel, and there's also no travel across state borders. So the first phase is we're allowed to now have up to 5 people visit our home. The next step will be easing up on some cafes. You're allowed to play golf now in my state. You're allowed to go fishing. So slowly, it's a balancing act between health and getting the economy going again.
Yeah. So actually, in the beginning, I think like everywhere in the world, growers suffered a lot because the demand dropped away totally.
Yes.
But actually, last week in the newspapers and even on television, I think was an article. Customers warned Mother's Day flowers will sell out despite of the coronavirus.
Well, that turned out to be 100% true. So everybody, the local growers and traders, have had a very, very good Mother's Day. I had a wholesaler tell me on Saturday morning it was the best Mother's Day ever.
Wow.
And the big issue has been imported flowers has been considerably reduced. Freight space, like everywhere in the world, is hard to get. Freight rates are double, triple what they normally are. So those importers that were able to secure space and flowers out of Kenya, Malaysia, South America, the prices were 2 or 3 times higher, but the demand could more than accommodate that. So combination of reduced imports. We had some cold weather in a major flower growing zone a week, 10 days ago, also slowed down production. Put it all together, coupled with a very strong demand. People are at home. People aren't taking their mother out for lunch on Sunday. People are sending flowers online. Many online flower traders stopped taking orders by Wednesday. Many retailers were sold out by Saturday. Just a massive shortage. But overall, it seems turnover and sales were up on previous years.
Yeah. Normally, if I'm correct, 50% of all the flowers sold is from import, right? In Australia.
A very high percentage. I don't know the exact percentage. It's quite seasonal. But yeah, imported flowers have increased dramatically in Australia in the last 5 to 10 years, and they've become a cornerstone of the market. So when they're not there, it puts a lot of pressure on supply for local growers. So they are very happy with no imports on the horizon. Prices have been up, and just the demand. There was wholesalers going to. I live in Melbourne. Melbourne is like the Holland of Australia, the flower capital. Over 50% of Australian flowers are grown in Melbourne, and wholesalers were going to farms and just buying the whole crop. Just it was amazing.
Unbelievable. I mean,
yeah.
yeah. So I know Melbourne a little bit. I used to sell there some flowers, or bulbs actually. So that was also the area where it was quite cold just before Mother's Day.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, you'd know the area in Melbourne in the Dandenongs, which is slightly higher altitude, very strong Dutch, second, third generation post-war families growing tulips and lilies and iris and freesia. So it's really the flower hub of the Australian flower industry.
Yeah. So that's I mean, for those growers, it's great. I think they struggled also the last couple of years with all the import flowers coming in.
Yes.
So for them, I think it turned out to be a good, not a good thing, but it helps them at least to get through this.
Yeah, well, I mean, a month ago when the crisis hit, there was talk. I know one lily grower was throwing out 20,000 bunches of lilies a week. A big tulip grower, De Boer, I believe, stopped planting their tulips for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, the import stopped and the demand went up, and the growers were just chasing their tail, trying to catch up. And I was at a lily grower on Friday, and the stage of lilies they were picking was very, very green. One grower was reluctant to put his own branded sleeve on it because it was just more immature than he would like, but the wholesalers were putting the pressure on and the prices were there. So they'll do anything to try and fill the orders.
Yeah, I just saw on, I think it was Instagram, one wholesaler telling that there will be no local flowers for the coming 2 weeks. So I think what you said about immature cutting states, that says it all.
Yeah. I mean, post Mother's Day, typically it's the week after Mother's Day in Australia is also always reasonably strong because people are reloading their coolers and supply chain. But then the next 2 weeks after that are typically a drop in demand. But given this corona environment with so many people at home, so many people buying online, that demand could still well be there. The demand in the garden sector, in pot plants, it's phenomenal. The growers cannot keep up, and they are supplying potted plants that would typically be scheduled for spring. So people are at home gardening and painting and doing homework, and it's great for our industry.
Yeah, it is. Actually, all over Instagram, I can read things like this. Thank you for the support. Fresh flowers are sold out. Still can take a few more preserved roses. This was already on Saturday or on Friday.
Yeah.
People are saying I stopped taking orders, things like this. So unbelievable.
Yeah. It's good. If it's been a very tough period, obviously, for everyone economically, and a bit of a shining light is the horticultural industry.
Yeah. And to continue on that, you started Easy Blooms just recently.
Yeah, so I mean, my background is predominantly B2B, importing, exporting, wholesaling. So first time in a direct to the consumer model, but given the surge in online platforms, dipped my toe back in the water, and very early days. I mean, we had orders for Mother's Day, but quite small.
Yeah.
But the basis of the model is a farm direct, a field to vase model. So
Yeah.
offering consumers bunch lines, so not made up bouquets, but they are able to buy a bunch of lilies, a bunch of tulips, a bunch of greenery, and make their own arrangement. So
Yeah.
quite a new approach. Most of the online models offer pre-made arrangements and bouquets. So the basis for Easy Blooms is trying to sell that grower direct to
Yeah.
your home, and yeah, it's very early days. So we've got a lot to learn about the world of social media branding and marketing, and it takes time. Not
Yeah.
what I'm used to at a B2B trading level.
No, for sure. But I think also B2B will be more online, and people, yeah, try to advertise things like this. Actually,
Yep,
somebody told me 2 weeks ago this way of trading is a new thing. It's not called B2B, B2C. It's called D2C, direct to customer.
yep,
Yeah, I think it's a great way. I mean, people can enjoy the flowers much longer, uh, and there's much more in contact with the consumers. So growers know what people like. I mean,
yep.
this has always been a lack, I think, in the total flower industry. Producers making sometimes things that they think themselves is nice, but the consumer, they've got no idea or they don't like it. But there's too many steps in between to, yeah,
Yeah, I
to
mean we're
get people
seeing
to
it
talk.
not just in flowers, but the crisis has you're seeing a lot of farmers of meat products, eggs, dairy, shipping direct to the consumer. There's a
Yeah.
number of florists in Melbourne who have added fruit and vegetable boxes to their offer.
Okay.
Um, so just restaurants who previously didn't do deliveries have stayed open, employed their staff. Just to so many innovations have taken place
Yeah.
on the back of this horrible virus.
Yeah. Yeah. You need to be creative during these times.
Yep.
Is there any support from the government for growers, traders?
Well, the main government support has been about the government providing financing for people to retain their employees.
Yeah.
So it's called a job keeper. So the government for 6 months will pay employers $1,550 a fortnight.
Yeah.
So roughly $36,000 a year for people to retain their staff. So not so much cash to the business, but cash to the business to distribute to their staff, and
Yeah.
that's costing billions of dollars. It's all about keeping money in the economy, keep people spending,
Yeah.
keep consumer sentiment positive, and fingers crossed we'll come out of this. They're still forecasting 10% unemployment, which is for Australia just a massive lift. But yeah, we
Yeah.
won't know until we come out of it at the other end.
Yeah, that's true. Luckily, there's already a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel, like you said. It's opening up a bit.
Yeah, yeah,
So the main thing you do, and we can already see it in the behind you,
yeah.
Helix Australia. Uh, can you tell us more about the company and what you do?
Yeah, so Helix Australia is a specialist breeder of new varieties of waxflower.
Yeah.
Um, as you all know, waxflower is a very popular filler flower that's grown in Israel, in California, in South Africa. It's native to Australia. Um, so we started this business in 2008.
Yeah.
Um, so the company where I was previously a director, WAFEX, is a big exporter of waxflower. Waxflower was always our biggest export crop. And yeah, back at that time, we were starting to get a lot of competition from lower cost Southern Hemisphere producers like Peru and South
Yeah.
Africa. We typically owned the market from July till December, but once Peru and South Africa came along, they were a lot cheaper. So we thought the only way we can survive in this market is to breed and own premium exclusive varieties. So we've been, my partner Craig and I have been involved in waxflower for almost 30 years. We understand the marketing part of the chain, and now we are, well over 10, 15 years into the breeding side of it. We work very closely with Kings Park Botanical Gardens in Perth, as well as our own private trials. And we are. It's really starting to become a nice business model. We have growers in South Africa, in Israel, in Portugal, California. We do not have a presence in Peru just yet. As well as cut flowers, the wax flower is also sold as a pot plant. So we have growers in Italy and Australia growing the pots for plants for the home gardener. And it's moving well. We compete. The only other place in the world where breeding of wax flower is taking place is in Israel. So really, there's only 2 companies in the world that are active developing new varieties of wax, and the market is very hungry for new varieties, new colours. Growers are very interested in early flowering and late flowering, larger blooms, different colours. We've got a pipeline of genetics, John, that will last my flower career, definitely, probably my children as well. We've got a very exciting pipeline of genetics coming through, particularly from Kings Park, where they're doing very advanced somatic fusion, and we are crossing varieties that otherwise may not naturally cross in nature, to chase new colours, new shapes, new sizes. The future in wax flower is very positive.
Okay, that sounds good. How long does it take from crossbreeding until it's a commercial variety?
I try not to think about that because if you're a sane person, you probably wouldn't do it. But as you know, flower people are not sane; they're crazy, and we do it because we love it. But realistically, there's not a lot of change out of 8 to 10 years in developing a new variety.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. Here we've got some tissue culture, I think.
Yeah, right? So that is work being. So the process at Kings Park, they're using a combination of typical crossbreeding techniques, crossing one flower with another, as well as an advanced laboratory technique called somatic fusion, which is taking the somata of a cell and fusing it with the somata of another plant cell, and then tissue culturing the outcome, and then using that offspring for typical crossing of flowers. So some of the hybrids that have been around in the last 20 years, beautiful varieties, but they're sterile, so you cannot use them for hybridization. So this technique enables us to put viability back into the cell, and you can use it for future breeding.
Wow, that's it sounds like a complicated process.
It is. It's done by people in white coats that are a lot smarter than me. We've got really strong techniques, and we're confident we'll have some fantastic and totally different wax flowers in the next sort of 10 years.
Okay, and I think these are the young plants, which we see now. How does that process go from planting until flowering, and how does it work? How does it grow, and how long does it take?
Right. So that picture is small plants. So as I said previously, we're supplying both the cut flower market and the pot plant market. So Cuttings are taken typically in late summer
Yeah.
in various parts of the world. The time for rooting to be a viable plant, it varies. My propagator in Israel is able to produce plants for the growers in a very short time frame, sort of 8 to 12 weeks. In Australia, we take a bit longer. We produce a bigger plant. Sometimes can take sort of 10 months to
Wow.
produce a plant which is suitable for planting in the field for cut flowers or for a pot plant.
Yeah. So that's already a long process. And
It
once,
is a long process, but yeah, a waxflower plant, if tended properly, will comfortably grow in the field for 10 plus years. Um, After that stage, many growers like to change over, move to newer varieties
yeah,
that are bringing better prices. Some varieties fall out of fashion due to too much supply, or the flower market.
yeah,
It's always changing.
yeah. Luckily, it is. I mean, it makes it interesting as well.
Very much.
Yeah. So once planted, it can give flowers for 10 years, more or less.
Quite easily. So our varieties, you normally get a small pick from year 2. You don't get a
Yeah,
pick year 1 as the plant is establishing itself. And from year 3 onwards, depending on the variety, it could yield 50, 70 stems per plant, or some of
wow.
our more vigorous varieties like Keren, Raspberry Ripple, they can produce 150, 200 stems per plant. So one of
Wow.
the traits we're offering growers, as well as something new and different, is also yield. Um,
Yeah,
Yield can, stems per square metre and lower costs of production. It may not be a variety bringing the highest price, but yeah, produced for sort of half the cost, so it stacks up.
yeah, yeah. That's also an important thing, of course. That's what we've seen with breeding of other varieties or other flowers as well, all over the world, of course.
Yeah.
So that's so it's a huge amount of flowers. And how do it flowers, but how do it's all grown outside? How do they spread the period of flowering?
Well, it's very much up to nature and the variety. So, waxflower sets its bud and its flower based on shortening days and cooler nights.
Yeah,
So, in Israel, they have varieties starting as early as October.
yeah,
They have varieties also flowering in April. So
okay,
part of the breeding challenge is to lengthen the season.
yeah,
Typically, early varieties bring higher prices. Um, so yeah, it's once it's planted on the field, it's really up to nature and that particular variety as to when it will flower. So a grower
yeah,
will have 10 or 20 varieties so that he's got supply for 6 months of the year, not just 6 weeks.
yeah. So actually, it's more or less like a chrysanthemum as well. With a short day, it will start to flower.
Yeah, short day induces the bud and the flower.
Yeah,
So in Israel, not so much now, but they used to manipulate day length by putting big black shade covers over their crops.
yeah,
Um, that's pretty much gone now. I go to Israel each year, and you don't see that practice now. They just go and find early and late varieties.
okay,
The cost and complexity of dragging big heavy covers over two
yeah,
acres, it's very impractical.
yeah, yeah. It is, and it makes it very costly as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So you said you're making bigger flowers, a bigger yield per square or per plant. Um, Double flowered, is it also a thing you are looking for?
Yeah, we have some double varieties already. There's a variety Dancing Queen, which has been on the market for quite a while. It's a double pink.
Yeah,
Um, we have another variety relatively new called Pirouette, which is a lovely pink flower with almost like a semi-double.
yeah,
So yeah, doubles are on our radar. With breeding, you mix it all in the pot. You don't know what you're going to get at the other end.
yeah,
Um, you have your fingers crossed. But yeah, doubles. I think flower size will potentially be the real game changer on wax in the next 10 years.
Okay.
And we always think of wax flower as a filler flower,
Yeah.
and a term we're playing with, if the breeding goes to plan, is we're going to be producing feature fillers. So wax flower blooms double what they currently are.
Wow.
And that it won't make it a feature like a rose or a lily, but it'll put it halfway between a gypsophila and a lily, and that could be
Yeah.
quite interesting for the florist. Possibly less stems required in a bouquet, which obviously helps the cost.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially and hopefully the growers get a better price, and also the florists can work with it better and get some better price out of it.
Yep. Yep.
Actually, one question about the potted plants.
Yep.
It's mostly grown in Italy, you said, and in Australia. Temperature-wise, can people put it on their terrace? Let's say in
So
Holland.
yeah, so the wax flower that's grown in Italy, and yes, our growers there, our flowering season is exactly when this coronavirus has been on.
Yeah.
So I haven't spoken to my guys in Italy for a few weeks, but pretty sure they would have missed their whole crop, because we flower March till May. So
Yeah.
so the growers in Italy supply a lot into Portugal, which is quite a hot climate, but also into
Yeah.
Holland, also into Scandinavia. But it's very much a patio type plant, which flowers, and once the cold weather comes, it will be no good. It will be a
Yeah.
throwaway line.
Yeah.
Whereas in Australia and South Africa, yeah, the pot plants we're growing are for the home gardener, and
Yeah.
they're planted in the garden, and providing it's not a cold area with frost, it will grow in the garden for 10 or 15 years.
Okay. So frost is a no-go for the wax flower.
Yeah, frost does not like it, or a little bit of frost, okay, but it's native to a very hot, dry coastal area called
Yeah.
Geraldton, which is about 4 hours north of Perth. So summers of 40 degrees Celsius, and no frost. Hot, hot. The
Yeah.
hotter the better for wax flower.
Okay. Yeah. Perth is Western Australia for
Correct.
people who don't know it.
Yeah.
Um, what I also seen on your website, there are some good restaurants or famous restaurants in Australia who use the wax flower in their
Yeah.
dishes.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. So in Australia and other parts of the world, there's just a massive surge in use of indigenous ingredients,
Yeah.
indigenous crops, particularly in high-end cuisine. So it's reported the Aborigines, many millions of years ago, hundreds of thousands of years ago, were using up to 16,000 species of plant
Wow.
for their food and other requirements. And so far, we have commercialised 20 of those plants. So there's just a massive interest and an industry evolving in Australian native plants,
Yeah.
various plums, various citrus, and yeah, wax flower. I'm a very keen cook, very keen reader of food and cooking magazines, and yeah, I stumbled across a restaurant that was using wax flower. So yeah, we're at the very early stages of developing that as a food crop. So it's
Yeah.
not the flower itself; it's the leaf. So
Okay.
it's to be used as a herb.
Yeah.
If you could imagine how rosemary is used,
Yeah.
so taking the leaf, mixing it with oil in a mortar and pestle, creating like a green paste, which can be used with fish, with lamb, with salads. It's a beautiful citrus taste. So yeah, quite an exciting opportunity, and yeah, it suits me because I'm a great lover of cooking and food.
Yeah. Now that's great. But 16,000 different types of plants the Aboriginals were using.
Yeah, I mean, they were very inventive. Necessity is the mother of invention, and
Yeah,
we have not touched the surface yet of the potential application, not just for food, also for medicine.
yeah,
So yeah, it's starting to attract the attention of some large investors who, yeah, the challenge for Australia is to try and retain and hold on to the intellectual property and
yeah,
not just let it all leak overseas. And so yeah, great opportunity.
yeah. But for what purpose were they using the wax flower, the Aboriginals?
So there's not a lot of documentation on the use of wax flower by Indigenous people. Um, so yeah, I don't know. We've discovered it by chance, purely based on its flavour. It's got a
Yeah,
very nice lemon flavour. So I've got no reference to Indigenous people using wax flower.
okay.
Yeah, but we hopefully we can develop some food products out of it. I've supplied it to companies making gin,
Yeah,
so it's been in some gin here. We're currently working with a boutique beer company.
yeah,
I believe it's got application to bread and some biscuits. So, but yeah, no history of Aboriginal use.
yeah. That's a pity.
Yeah.
Are there other great stories about wax flower that people don't know or should know?
I suppose just the history of the wax flower industry, as much as we've grown it in Australia and picked it from the wild here for probably 100 years, Israel was the country that really put wax flower on the map.
Yeah,
So Israel started producing wax flower in the late 1970s, and since that time, wax flower has been through some peaks and troughs in Israel. High prices, everybody jumps on board, oversupply, low
yeah,
prices, people move off, very typical across many flower crops.
yeah,
Currently, wax flower is going through one of those boom cycles, and planting and expansion in Israel and other parts of the world is quite strong.
yeah,
So, yeah, it started in the 70s. California also started producing probably in the 1980s. California is a massive grower of wax flower, but just for the domestic market. They
yeah,
have such a large market, they don't need to export it. And then in the last 10 years, 15 years, is South Africa and Peru have become major producers of wax flower, counter seasonal to Israel. Israel
yeah,
is October till April. Peru and South Africa are like May, June through to October, November, as is
yeah,
Australia.
yeah. And Portugal, or is it still a very small market?
Portugal is quite small. Portugal production in that space is predominantly in proteas and
Yeah,
leucodendron and leucospernum. They are able to be counter seasonal to South Africa,
yeah,
but we have trial plantings in Portugal at the moment, and yeah, it looks good. It looks like their window will be six to 8 weeks later than Israel, so they could potentially fill that window of May, June before Peru and South Africa and Australia really hit their straps.
oh, that's great.
Yeah, ideally we want to be in the market 12 months of the year,
Yeah,
and when you're in the market 12 months of the year, I mean, florists, bouquet makers, they're more willing to include it in their recipes rather than a
yeah,
crop that's only on the market for 3 months of the year.
yeah. It's strange sometimes that people talk about seasonal flowers, but that there's still a lot of florists, bouquet makers that say, okay, seasonal flowers, it's really nice, but I want to have it available 12 months a year.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that's the thing. In Portugal, it's a very special region. I think it's 300 kilometers or 200 kilometers below Lisbon, and
Correct.
there's a Gulf Stream over there. That's why there's almost no frost over there, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't say no frost because my very good friend Nick Oudendijk has a protea farm in that area, and 3 or 4 years ago, got a very, very severe frost, which did a lot of damage. The farms have recovered. The plants have been cut back. I was there in January this year, so they're okay. It was one in a million frost. So yeah, you can't say it's never going to get touched by the frost demon.
Yeah, the weather is changing all over the world. I mean, that's something we have to cope with as well.
Yeah, yeah.
I think. So, and is it also something you're looking for? I think it's difficult to breed on a little bit of frost resistant in Australia.
Yeah, I mean, we're not. I don't know how you go about that, to be honest. If something comes out of the breeding that is able to withstand frost, that would be positive. But by and large, any grower on scale that's going to be growing wax, it's going to be growing it in an area that's frost free, pretty much.
Yeah.
Hot, dry, and sandy soils. So it's not high on our list to have a frost free variety.
Yeah. And does it need a lot of water, or is it? I mean,
well, I mean, its natural habitat is very sandy, so yes, it needs water. When we started in waxflower, our government agricultural research people used to tell us a figure of 8 litres per plant per day. But we've had instances at our own farm in Western Australia where a pipe is broken and plants have received 20, 50 litres a day, and their productivity has doubled.
Wow.
So, I mean, it can survive on low water. I mean, Israel, obviously, the masters of water growing efficiency. So, no, it doesn't need a lot of water, but water produces stem length, water improves quality, but it must be in a sandy soil. It likes good draining soil. So, it doesn't like wet feet.
Yeah, okay, great. Anything else about waxflower? Because I think we heard some great stories already, which people can use when they're selling waxflower in their shop or as a wholesale. I mean, storytelling is the thing to go, I think. We've got some great products as where we work with as flower industry with a lot of different stories. So we need those actually.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like the market is very enthusiastic about waxflower. When it first comes on from a different region, that people are excited. It's got a nice smell. It comes in a range of colours. The vase life is improving in line with the breeding. I look to when we started back in the 90s, it was quite a risky crop to export and avoid flower drop. But all those varieties are pretty well surpassed now, and we still typically, treat the wax after harvest. But our problems with flower drop and petal drop now are considerably lower, and it's a reliable mainstay for bouquet makers and florists all around the world.
Yeah, I remember many years ago buying it, and before buying it, you were always getting a bunch and shaking it, see how many flowers will fall out. But what should a florist do once they receive the wax flower? Do they need to put it on flower food or?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't need any particular treatment different from any other flowers. Obviously, recut the stems, change the water, use a commercial flower preservative. The main thing about wax, it's ethylene sensitive. So it doesn't, if it's near sources of ethylene, be it ripening fruit or exhaust from cars or forklifts, it will drop its flowers. Okay, so it never gets mixed in freight with loads of fruit because the ethylene gas is quite damaging. So keep it cool. Obviously, heat warmed up flowers produce ethylene quicker. It's part of the way they age. So
Yeah.
anything to keep it cool and fresh, you'll optimize the vase life in the wax flower.
Yeah, that's very important. And also clean the stems. People sometimes, what I see, they think, oh, it's just very little leaves or needles. We don't need to clean it, but it's also a leaf, so clean it, because then the vase and the water stays cleaner.
Exactly. Just like a rose, clean water, recut, preservative, you'll get extra vase life out of your wax flower.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Adrian, thank you very much for all the
Thank you, John.
information and telling about the Australian market and, of course, about the wax flower. Hope to see a lot of new varieties coming up.
Yeah.
If you have some new varieties, send it to us, and we can share it with all the people following Flower Circus.
Okay, great.
So yeah, thank you for joining, and yeah, for the people watching, I hope to see you tomorrow. Thank you for watching.
Thanks, John. Thanks for the opportunity. All the best.
All the best.
Cheers. Bye.